And even though I'm a CEO of a product company, I promise you not much of this is about the product, but more about the concept and the thesis behind the data testing aspect of the enterprise world. So I want you to look at this slide for a moment, and I'll just give you 2-3 points about this. TSB lost about $500 million when they were migrating their system. They lost money from about 1,300 customers. They were legal. The CIO of the company was personally fined for I think 88,000 pounds. There was reputation loss. There are YouTube videos. You can go and search for TSB, and you will find a lot of YouTube videos, people shouting, claiming on Facebook and other things. Why this is important is, I know we are from the QA side. There are most of the people here, I think, are from the QA and data quality or reliability or application testing, application reliability side. I want you to take a moment and think, how many of your project portfolio are application testing, and how many of your project portfolios are actually data-centric systems that you are testing and certifying data-centric systems. So if you thought about it, raise your hand if you are involved in a data testing project or data migration or data, Salesforce or where a lot of data is involved. How many of you? Like 40-50%. If you look at QA, if you have seen most of the vendors or speakers, they're talking about application testing. And what I want to bring in, that there is another animal, all right? There's another elephant in the room, and that is data testing, and let's have a look at it. So this is again the TSB example, but if you look at this, what they had an IT platform, and they were supposed to migrate it to another system called Sabis, and we don't have to go into the details. But if you look at it, they were migrating about 5.2 customers from where they will do their credit card processing, debit card. You go to the ATM, the money comes in, comes out. So you click, and do your transactions over there. It's such a critical thing. And I want you to encourage you actually to go and Google TSB migration failure. Their whole business was dependent on this application, but there's one thing they did that they were supposed to do, that they were supposed to do data testing, and they never did it. So why I'm saying this thing? Of course, I'm in the business of data testing, so I'm talking about it, but why you should look into it. The QA in this place, they missed this, a few things that we need to know. When you are doing application testing, there might be workflows and other things, but there is usually some kind of UI that you are dealing with. There is performance testing, there is mobile testing, there are workflow testing, there are a lot of small things that you are expert in that subject. But look at this, when you are doing data-centric projects, it's totally different now. In a data-centric projects, you have data migration testing, ETL testing, data warehouse testing, pipeline testing, BI report testing, API data testing. We can go into big data testing, SAP testing. So it's totally different. Again, I want you to take a moment and think, in your organization, when you think about quality assurance, do you think in terms of, hey, I have to do application testing and I have to do data testing, right? Then is your organization structured that there are experts in application testing, there are experts in data testing? Then the next level is, are there people, are there tools available for you? Like we heard about the tool earlier, that is amazing in application testing, but do you have any product solution for data testing? Why? Because data testing involves mostly background process. There is no UI. When you are doing millions or billions of record processing, there is no UI. There is all background processes. One of the things that differ between application testing and data testing is when you are doing data testing, as you saw, there is somebody logging in or somebody doing dollar transaction or a $50 transaction. But when you go to data testing, you are moving millions and billions of records from one place to another. You are processing the whole transactional system in the night. You have thousands of jobs running in the night. So the behavior is totally different. Remember, if you have a software that does application testing, that cannot be, because of the behavioral changes, you cannot use it for data testing. You cannot use application testing software to test, let's say you are going to test like your car, right? How your car is performing. So different projects, different systems require different tools, and that is the key point here. One of the key differences when you go to a data-centric or data-centric projects is the number of records that you are processing. Then if you look at the skills that I said earlier, when you are looking at application testing, you need certain skills like scripting, UI, UX. But when you go to data testing, again, it's totally different. You need to know SQL, you need to understand data model, right? So if you take a moment and look at the skill resources that you have within your team, is it structured? Is the skills applicable for data testing system? And that's a very important question you need to ask yourself. And now we'll go into a little bit more details, technically how it differs. See, if you look at testing, at the end of the day, what it is, expected versus actual. What I expect versus what is actually there. In application test, you have a UI. I'm taking a simple example. Obviously, there are more complex use cases. But when you click on a button, something should happen. Did it happen or not? Right? So that's the kind of thing you're trying to do. And your focus is mostly on code integrity. And if you go to data testing, now there is no UI. There is no click here, click there. Nothing is like that is going to happen. Here, what is expected and what is actual, it depends totally on the data. What data was I expecting and what data actually arrived there? What data was I supposed to process and what exactly I processed? So if you look at from the integrity, like quality aspect point of view, on the one side we are looking at code integrity, and here you're mostly interested in data integrity, right? Now, if you look at this is one example. This is like a data warehousing or a general data flow diagram in a big organization. You get data in the files, then you process it into some staging area, then it goes into a warehouse. From there it goes into data marts. You extract files from there. Those files get into reports. The reports got delivered, and hopefully the management takes decision based on reports. Right? Fundamentally, that's what they use. There is another use case is the downstream people, the people who are downstream, they use that data to process their data. So if you have messed up some processing over here, this has cascading effect on all the downstream application. So you can't get away with it. The question, as I said, I'm not going to talk about the iceDQ product, but the question is, how do you exactly test a data pipeline? Because there is no UI, there is no click here and try to see what is the response when I do certain process. So here's the interesting point when it comes to data testing. When you are testing your application, you go to the gate, pull up the code, you test the code, how it is performing and things like that. But when it comes to data, the interesting part is to test the code. You don't actually test the code at all. And there's a conflict in my statement, but hear me out. I received 100 customers. A developer wrote the ETL code to transform that thing and load it into the target system. If I go and try to reverse engineer the ETL code and understand the ETL code, it's very difficult. What you need to do is you have to look at what the initial data was there, what is the data that I gave, and what is the data it created. So it is usually input data plus the transformation rule is equal to your output, right? So if you can create a rule that can verify whatever was done on the data, what was the data before and what was the data after, then you can certify that the ETL process or the data process is accurate or is of high quality or poor quality. Now, again, bypassing the details, let me take one example. The validation rule, right? So let's say I have data in a table and let's say a gross amount, a net amount. What is net amount? We know. Net amount is gross amount minus commission, minus taxes, minus fees, right? So this is a rule I know. So when the ETL process or the data pipeline runs, I can do a validation rule and say, look at the net amount, right? And take it, and that amount should be gross amount minus taxes, minus fees, minus commission. If that is not true, then the ETL process that was developed by the programmer or developer is not good. So this is what we call as validation rule. Is something that is somewhere in your mind, and you convert that into a rule and put into a system, and that rule now can tell if the data is correct or not. So far so good. But here's a problem, and this is a unique difference about data-centric testing. What is actual and what is expected is sometimes dynamic. If I gave you 100 customers and I said load 100 customers, load all the customers, your expected versus actual is actually 100 versus how many got loaded. So the output actually totally depends on the input, right? If I give you 200 customers, now you have to compare, I have 200 versus 200. So it is dynamic. If I give you 201 customers, you cannot say I want 200 customers. No, the requirement has changed now because it went from 200 to 201. So at this point, you need to take a step back and say, hey, how do I do this? Because it's very dynamic. And for that, we had to go in our, I think 6th grade, where we learned the set theory in the math, where, what I gave you, you reconcile and do a set theory between what I received, A, B, C customers. On the right hand side, I received ABC X customer. So I know I received extra customer than what I given. If I received ABC and I loaded BC, that means A is missing. And we can go into this. There are more complex and more evolved solutions within this. But fundamentally, when you do data testing, I want you to think about 2 points. One, are you comparing it with a known value? So you create a rule about that, right? Or it is a dynamic thing that is dependent on the incoming values, then you create a reconciliation rule. So it's very important to understand these 2 points, because these are the 2 things that drive how data testing is done. So I already talked about it, but I will still take this example over here. We have a customer that we received, and the customer file has customer code, name, date of birth, and sex, right? I can create a rule. This is a static rule, so it's a validation. It's fixed. I can say the name cannot be null. There is no email, but the customer code cannot be null, or the customer code has to be between 2 and 3, right? The 2-digit value. So you can create these kind of rules in validation which are static. So far so good. Then, so the problem is you created the rule, right? Some kind of rule, but at some point it has to give you where exactly the problem is, right? You just cannot say to you, I created a rule and it says there are customers which have, the code is not 2-digit but 3-digit, right? Something like that. If I just tell you that, you will be happy momentarily, but then you'll be upset because, hey, where is the exact problem? Which record has the issue? You cannot just tell me that there's an issue. Tell me which table, which row, which column has a value. So X, Y, you have to go into this. So here's a screenshot from one of our products, right? Where it is actually showing you, I can't see it with my glasses now, but hopefully you can see, but it is showing you where I think the null, sorry. So there are some numbers. Whatever rules I created for those numbers, it has actually identified the problem and saying in this table, in this record, in this column, X, Y, there is an issue over here, and then you do whatever you have to do necessary. Makes sense so far? Now, let's go source and target reconciliation. So there are 3 parts into this. There is the source, there is a target, and there is a rule in between. Within that, I have a list of things. So as I said, A, B, C, I received ABC. Did I loaded ABC? So you can say, hey, I can just count 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3, right? So it's 3 and 3. I should pass, but it cannot be true because I can take ABC, but my process can just take A 3 times and load it there and say good. No, you're not good because you loaded the same record 3 times. So what I need the second level. So I need ABC and it has to match the ABC. Okay, now ABC customer and ABC customers are matching. If there is something less or something more, it will point it out to you, right? But let's say the customer ABC is there and the customer ABC is loaded on both sides. But now what happens to the customer name, customer email, customer join date, whatever, right? Though if those dates are not there or those columns are not matching, then you have a problem. So again, what you need is not only you need, so when we do reconciliation, this is my source side, this is my target side, I compare them, compare the counts, compare the primary keys or the individual records, and then once the record match, you go at each record level and each column level and say within this record, even if the customers are matching or the trades are matching or the accounts are matching, the underlying values are not matching within that table or within that file. Make sense? Conclusion. See, there are few takeaways I want you to take when we go back home or go back to the office. If you look at first thing, you need to look at application testing different from data testing. That's number one. Number two, do you have the skills and the people who have the skills, are they trained in application testing versus data testing? That's number two. Number three, do you have the tools? Because you cannot use the same tools at application testing in data testing, right? Then there are underlying concepts of your testing course, your script-based skills. You need to know SQL, and there's one. Actually, if you look at data testing, there is another point, number 6, and this is very interesting. I will read it for you. Corner cases are discovered within data, right? A good tester will always say anybody can test this application, but I am the person who finds the corner cases that nobody is seen or nobody understands. But take my word on this, in data testing, when you have billions and trillions and terabyte of record, the best of the best QA person cannot find anything. So the way data-centric projects are tested, you don't do sample data. You don't take 5 records and we do for transaction testing, you take one transaction, see what happens to it. But you take millions and millions of records and run it through, force through it through the rules and find exceptions, because now the rules is a machine that can find things that are issues in the data, and then it will make you more effective in finding those issues, and then you can go back and report to your company or organizations and things like that. So with that, I will open it for the questions. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So when you feed the data into the stool, right, what connectivity types would support? So I mean, like ODBC, JDBC, or
everything. See, when it comes to testing, you cannot say I will just support ODBC. You have to support ODBC, JDBC, file, JSON, API, all kind of things. Integration has to be supported by that product. Because your one file might be coming from FTP server, another file might be coming from might be JSON, another might be in a Snowflake in the cloud.
Yeah. So does it support all of these connectivity options out of the box?
Yes. Yes.
And even ODBC and JDBC drivers?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And what vendor of ODBC drivers is this?
It's product specific. Normally, all of them go through JDBC, right? But there are old products that don't have JDBC driver, then you go to ODBC. Yeah. Questions? I hope the point is taken that, again, I'll just repeat one statement and then I'll walk out of this place. That please think in your organization, I'm pretty sure a lot of application projects are going, but there are millions and billions of dollars of projects that are being executed which are data-centric, data migration, migrating to cloud, Snowflake, right? Then there are data warehouses, then there are trading systems, there are insurance systems, there are a lot of systems that are going, that are mostly data. Healthcare has a lot of these projects, insurance, finance, there are a lot of data projects, and you need specialized people, people and resources for that. Thank you.